It seems from several comments I've heard over the past few months that people think pressures and binds are caused by the growth of the fiber in a limb or tree trunk. I will agree that when trees grow and limbs are formed, that the fiber can be in angles and sometimes rotating around the center as it grows. However, that fiber is still making yearly circles of growth. Trees grow in circles. Every year they add growth rings, but still remain flexible to maintain their growth and support system. The fiber rings are thinner and thicker as the tree maximizes its use of nutrients and sunlight for needed support of its life. For instance, look at the base of a tree. Hardwood trees build up support to the backside to support lean. The front of the tree on the leaning side is usually flat, and the roots build on the backside to support the weight. A conifer tree, pine or fir, etc., those species usually build on the leaning side to support the growth and weight. The leaning side is usually thicker toward the roots. Both of them, as with most all species, remain flexible to manage wind, weight, and seeking sunlight and water. You can take a line and put it high into even a large tree and be able to wiggle the top. They're very flexible. They have to be to remain standing in the elements. Trees in a valley or wind path, you will often see the trunk growing in an oval shape to support itself against the wind flow in its environment. When sawing through a limb or trunk, you sever the fiber cross-grain or rip with grain. Either way you cut, it releases the end of the fibers. If there is any splitting or binding, it's not because of the fiber's growth, but stress it's under from pivots, weight, and flexing. I was up in George Washington National Park near DC doing some training with park personnel a few years ago. I had one person who was very concerned with safety when his tree to cut was a gum tree. He said he wasn't comfortable with cutting a gum tree. His supervisor had a close call with one in their park. He said his supervisor was cutting it, and because a gum tree twists fiber as it grows, it made the tree spin around 3 times before it fell. It barely missed him and a fence line they didn't want to damage. So he said to me he's just not comfortable with a gum tree. I explained to him that it wasn't the fiber in the tree that caused it to spin. It was probably a lack of fiber. When you cut cross grain of a tree trunk or limb, the fiber has end grain fiber on both sides of the cut. The tree doesn't release any magical twist movements as you cut. As long as you have a notch and hinge, the twist really can't happen unless the fiber is compromised with rot or you simply cut the hinge fiber off. Even with compromised fiber, it's not the fiber, but the lack of good fiber that causes the pinch of a saw or the twist of the tree. So he asked, what happened? I asked, do you know what the plan was before someone began to cut? What were issues with the fiber? Was it rotten or damaged? Was lean toward the target area? Was there side lean? Were vines or intertwined limbs present in the canopy or crown of the tree? Most likely it twisted from a lack of hinge or vines, etc. It caused the twist as the tree fell, evidently without a sufficient plan to be able to review results. The best part of a complete plan is to be able to review the results to see if your plan worked. The same is true with limbs and trunks on horizontal trees, or even removing limbs when pruning a tree. Limbs often have more limb weight on one side than the other. This causes twist if you begin removing fiber that has supported it. Limb stems or tree trunks are affected by gravity more than the fiber rotation inside its stem growth. A limb touching another, a trunk's canopy weight, a hinge or pivot the log or limb is over. These elements most of the time will determine the compression and tension side of a cut. Saying all this, at the point of the saw cut, The tree growing in circles can cause fiber to separate at the growth rings, and a twist or rotation can take place. For instance, if you're a climber with a lanyard around the tree, or you're not wanting a log to peel up or down for quality sale reasons, the fibers at the edge of a hinge, the last 4 or 5 years of growth rings, are very strong and flexible. The side of a hinge will pull the fibers apart because with a kerf or face notch made in the planned movement direction, the fiber can't bend into the face notch, and this causes it to push outward and separate. The fibers sometimes peel down or up the log or limb. If you're a climber, as it peels down the stem, it can grab your lanyard and make a tree hugger out of you quickly and dangerously. Now, thinking through the cut, it's not the twist in the growth fiber that causes the pressures and binds and pulls. It's the way you sever the fiber as you make the cut. One last example. If you look at a tree trunk or limb that split as it fell, whether by saw action or storm, observe where the fiber split. The fiber separated because of twist or pressure. When you start the cut with a saw, the fiber tries to return to its original position. If you don't plan this closely, you most likely will end up with a stuck saw. Also, consider a fork or crotch in a tree when it was standing. According to how it landed, that area on the tree will be under pressure from the weight of the trunk or limb. It is trying to go back to its original position. You have to plan it carefully to prevent getting stuck. Every cut anticipate movement up or down, back or forward, and side to side. Compression side first, tension side second is the way to cut. Remaining fiber controls the movement. This is Tim Ard, wishing you good sawing.